Ohio State University is offering a course which requires students to examine their privileges if they are white, heterosexual, or able-bodied.
Okay, well, the course Individual Differences in Patient-Client Populations is offered through the university's Health Sciences School. In it, students are asked to unpack their invisible knapsack by writing a reflection and considering how this differs or does not differ from how they framed their relative privilege before. Okay, joining us now to discuss is Campus Reform Editor-in-Chief and Adjunct Professor Dr. Zachary Marshall. Doctor, explain to us what this knapsack is and then what you were trying to be forced to teach there and break all this down. This is crazy to us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. The knapsack is a metaphor from a 1988 article called White Privilege. And in it, the author tells students to imagine all their privileges bundled up in this knapsack and then take them out, unpacking one at a time to examine them. I was forced to teach this essay in a similar activity that Ohio State has when I was getting my PhD at George Mason. And I have to say that this essay and the related activities are very toxic because the article assumes and then tells its readers that all Black Americans are poor and all white Americans are middle class or rich. So it completely erases the idea that Black Americans can be successful and that there are lots of Americans who are white who are also suffering with poverty or with lack of access to healthcare or other goods and services.
Yeah, you know, the knapsack lesson is nothing new, as you just explained, Dr. Marshall. You know, it's also not just about white students where we're talking about this knapsack, but also now targeting heterosexual kids, again, kids, students, and those who are not disabled. That means able-bodied. It seems like this is going to further extremes than we could ever imagine.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've been reporting on for years at Campus Reform is this idea of intersectionality, that these ideas or these identities of oppression and oppressor are interrelated and interlocked. So when we see assignments and activities like the invisible knapsack being used at colleges, what's happening is that universities are using intersectionality to push leftist agendas, but in reality, there's no such thing as interlocked identities according to these curricula. It is just false binaries and separating these students into groups of either poor and Black or rich and white. And all around, they're all lies that hurt students because it doesn't teach them to think critically. It doesn't teach them how to think or how to view complex situations and ideas.
I'm going to bring in Joe Pinion here, GOP strategist and former U.S. Senate candidate in studio right now. Hey, Joe.
Good to be here.
Hey, Joe.
What do you make of this? The privileged knapsack and really just the microcosm of DEI here in the country and how they've really gotten themselves into our higher education institutions.
I would like to make sure the students know how to read the books in the knapsack. I would like to make sure that the students know how to do the math that adds up all the alleged privileges. Look, we know that there are differences from community to community.
Sure.
We know that maternal mortality for Black women is close to 3 times as high as it is for white women. So there are specific actual disciplines where it is important to recognize those differences. But that's not what's happening here. Time and time again, they try to emphasize the differences between people as a means of keeping us divided. And if the goal is to say that hate is taught, it is not something that you are born with, that we should be emphasizing the commonality between the cultures at a time like this when we know there is so much deep division from community to community, neighbor to neighbor.
Dr. Marshall, we have less than 30 seconds left, but I just want to get your thoughts here. It does seem, though, that by doing this to students, that you may be making students who simply, again, they were born straight, they were born white, they were born not disabled, making them feel somehow guilty or responsible for other people's realities where they're not remotely connected.
You're absolutely right, and that has terrible ramifications for American society because what we're seeing is colleges are graduating a whole generation that can't think for themselves and only reacts out of guilt and emotions to real inequalities, but they don't have the intellectual capability to process them because of what higher ed is doing.
Well, Dr. Zachary Marshall, we appreciate you coming on, bringing this all to light here. Such an important conversation to have and to know what our students are being taught. And I want to remind students out there, you're footing the bill for these colleges. You don't technically have to learn this stuff if you don't want to. You're going